I ask Marcegaglia to take the stage, please. Thank you.
Dear Minister, dear Antonio, ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure for me to be here, to be in Lisbon today for this very important conference about the future of industry in Europe, organized by our member CIP. It's also a great honor that the Minister of Finance accepted to be with us at this opening speech. As Antonio said, I think we are going through, as Europe, a very difficult moment, the most difficult moments in the history of the European Union. And as Antonio said, we have, of course, to face these difficulties, but we have also to be ready and to be also capable to try to make some more steps, further steps to have a better Europe, to go further into integration, and also to have a lot of policies to enhance growth, competitiveness, and creation of jobs. I want to start, of course, saying this is normal, but I want to underline this here in Lisbon. It's clearly that as Business Europe, as a business association and business people in Europe, we really regret that the United Kingdom chose to leave the European Union. All our member federations were strongly in favor of remain. We worked together before the referendum tried to convey these ideas. And as it has been said, Brexit opened up factors of uncertainty, and uncertainty is an enemy of growth. But as always, business will try, and I think we will be able to do it, to adapt to the new situation, even if it is tough and if it is painful. We still, as a European business community, continue to strongly believe in the European Union. It's not just saying this, but we really believe that our future is staying together, is in the European Union. And it is important that the leaders of the EU and the member states pass on this message very clearly everywhere. I think we must focus on what is coming, on the way forward. And our main aim must be to minimize the adverse consequences of the Brexit, of this vote, for citizens and for business across Europe. I think in this moment, keeping a cool head is essential. To have an orderly process to define how our new relationship with the UK, it is imperative that the 27 member states show unity in their commitment to the three main economic pillars of the European Union. I'm talking about the single market, which is very important. It's a way to enhance growth, the common trade policy, and also the euro. So I think we must avoid the two pitfalls. From one hand, rushing forward with undue haste, and on the other hand, leaving a vacuum which reinforces uncertainty and anxiety about the future for all of us. So I think the first thing we have to ask is that our British friends, they have to tell us as soon as possible what alternative they want to the EU membership, and so what they would like to see developed, so that the 27 member states can take a common stance on what is negotiable and what is not. And at the same time, they must work on a common vision of the future Europe. So the discussion between EU and UK can only start once the UK has notified officially its intention to leave the EU. But it's also so we want them to have some time to understand what they really want, because up to now it's not clear. But also, from the other hand, we have also to be clear in saying we don't want to punish them. It doesn't make any sense, this. But on the other hand, it must be clear that there are some rules, and these rules must be fulfilled from everyone, and we cannot accept a cherry picking where they just take some parts and not the other parts. So this will be a tough negotiation, a difficult one, and as I said, it had to start when the UK will notify officially its intention to leave, and we want to have a clear situation, a clear position from them of what they want to do with the EU. So we, also as Business Europe, we will follow this negotiation. The negotiation will be tough, will be difficult, but of course I think it's good and it's in the interest of all of us to arrive to a good agreement with them. But as I said, it must be clear that they have to accept our rules if they want to have access to the single market. But as I said, we don't want any punishment because this is not in the interest of anybody. But there is also another point. During the UK referendum campaign, the kind of Europe that companies and citizens want was debated in all member states. And this debate has sent out strong messages about the urgent need to deliver a European Union added value, a deeper European Union, a better European Union, and to develop a coherent and joint vision out of the sometimes very different signals received. It will be essential to focus more on our common interest. So this is a very important and critical moment. I also had to say that, what I see is that Euroscepticism has been nourished by the tendency to put the blame on the EU. For sure, EU must be better, as Antonio said. We have to improve in the regulation. We have to improve in the way we see and we look at growth and jobs of investments. But it's also important that the national government doesn't always put blame on the EU each time there was a difficult problem to face, and also in the future. So I think this has to stop. No member states can be strong in a weak European Union. This must be very clear. And the European Union cannot be expected to be the silver bullet for unsolved national problems. So we have to have a better Commission, a better Parliament, a better EU institution, but on the other hand, we don't want to see national government to put blame on Europe and on European institutions when there are difficult problems to face. We, as Business Europe, we had some discussion among us, and we will have other discussion, but our idea is that we want to have a role in this critical moment. We want to understand what kind of Europe we want for the future. We want to have a very pragmatic attitude, not saying just good and nice sentences, but analyzing really what kind of changes we need. We will have a broader discussion among us. Maybe we also want to speak with also other people, not only business people, but why not young people, politicians, people from, from the society. And we want to come up with some great, clear ideas on what we want for the future, but also what we need to do in the next 6 months. Because as Antonio said, I think the best way to fight populism and to fight the demagogic attitude which is spreading out all over Europe is to propose new things, a new vision of Europe, but also a very pragmatic Europe, and also give some signals in the next 6 months. We cannot just say in the next 3, 4, 5 years we will change Europe. We also need to deliver some things and some ideas and also some decision in the next 6 months. So as Business Europe, we will work very hard. We work together with all our national associations, trying to really come up with strong ideas on what is needed. Of course, we have already some clear ideas on how we see things. And for example, one of the first things we always said, and we will go on in saying this and also going deeper in analyzing and make concrete proposal on things, is that we want a European Union that focuses on where Europe can really add value and stays away from matters better dealt at a national or regional level. So we don't want further integration on any subject. There are some subjects that can be dealt better at a national level or even a regional level. But there are other matters where we really need further integration. So this is the first thing that we have to analyze. We want also a European Union that defines and implements a global strategy with a strong economic pillar. with the EU speaking with one voice in external relations, security policies, and when negotiating trade and investment agreements. I want to say something on this. I will go back also to this. In this situation where there is a lot of demagogic ideas and a lot of populism, we also see a lot of attitude against free trade. We see some protectionism coming and spread out all over Europe. We don't think this is a good idea in the long term for businesses, but also for people. So we want free trade, good free trade agreement, of course, where Europe can say things, is on a level playing field with the US, for example, with Japan, with Canada. But we want to underline that in this situation, protectionism is always an enemy of growth and jobs in the long term. Of course, we want also a European Union that safeguards Schengen. This is very important, brings real European answer to the refugee crisis, and has an efficient management of our external borders. This is something very important. There are some discussion going on. We also talk a lot about this. Also on this, we want to bring concrete ideas. For example, we can try to protect our external borders, not with walls, because walls are always very dangerous and they don't solve the problems, but, for example, using technologies, using a way to also enhance investments. But we have to protect our external borders. Otherwise, we will not be able to safeguard Schengen, which is very important. And we want also a European Union with improved governance of the economic and monetary union. We have made some progress since the crisis, 2008, but we must continue to move forward by addressing the issues raised by the 5 President reports. We are talking, of course, about banking union to be completed. We have to talk about single deposit insurance. We are talking about having a pro-competitiveness agenda also in each country. So there is a lot of things to do. So we know that there has been some progress up to now, but these are not enough, and we have to go further. Yes, for example, if we look at what's going on in the growth in Europe, growth is getting a little bit better in Europe, but the economy in most member states is still fragile. I'm Italian. In Italy, we see some progress for sure, also due to the reforms, but the growth is not enough. I think also here is the same. And so growth is still fragile. And as Antonio said, Brexit will have a negative economic consequences. The ECB has made a projection that Brexit could drop the economic growth in EU about 0.5% of GDP growth, which, we are talking about 1.5, 1.7 GDP growth. If we have a drop of 0.5, it's a lot. So we still have to work on growth. We have some improvement in the member state public finances, but it is even more important today to ensure that we don't reverse the efforts made, and we continue to enhance reforms. When fiscal consolidation is done mostly through tax increases, as Antonio was said, companies cannot grow. So we have to put together efforts on expenditure side, and growth enhances reforms are crucial to be successful in the long run. So I agree with Antonio that, of course, we cannot talk only about fiscal consolidation, because fiscal consolidation is important in the long term, because all our countries can grow in the long term if we have solid public finance. We have also to talk, of course, about growth, about how to enhance investment, how to create jobs, but we have to go on with reforms that enhance growth, and reforms that enhance growth and reforms that put our public finance in a good shape cannot be done only by raising taxes, because this is against competitiveness. So we have also to go on with have better public expenditure. We have, as you know, a European investment plan. It's working, it starts to work. We have some investment going on in Europe thanks to this, around 100 billion euro. Somebody said it's not enough. Yes, it's not enough, but it's a good signal. But this is, we have also to enhance the other pillar, which is the obstacles that we have to remove the obstacles for private investment. We have to enhance public investment. We have to do more, and there are some member states that have margins to do more on this, and we ask these member states to do more also on the public investment. But also we need to remove all the obstacles to have more private investment. As Antonio was said, we need Europe to attract investment, to have internal investment, but also to attract foreign investment. And there is a lot to do. If I look at some data, in 2000, Europe was able to attract more or less 47% of all the world investments. Now we just attract 20%. So we are less competitiveness. A lot of investment are going out of Europe because here there are too many obstacles, too high taxes, the price of energy is too high. So we have really to remove all the obstacles to enhance private investments. And on employment is declining a little bit, also in your country, in other countries, but it remains too high, and so we have also to work on this. And to do this, we need more investment, but we have also to be clear, we need also more business-friendly regulatory environment, and we need more labor market flexibility to create jobs. And of course, we also made some progress in fighting terrorism and addressing the migration crisis, but the geopolitical context is far from being stable. And on international trade, as I said, we think that international trade is a way to enhance growth. We can have a lot of more growth because, Europe can export a lot. But also here, as you know, we have to be clear because we are under a permanent threat of seeing some countries unilaterally questioning the mandate given to the Commission by Member States collectively. This undermines the credibility of the European Union. So once the European Union has made an agreement with a country, for example, Canada, at the end we have to enhance this, because if one country said, well, I don't like this, we have to go back, we need all the national parliaments to say yes to this agreement, this could really create a lot of danger in our credibility as European Union. So we have to go on also on that. So I think there are a lot of things to do. As Antonio said, we need to have a very strong industrial base in Europe. We still have a good industrial base, but as I said, we are losing competitiveness. So what we need to do is clear. As I said, we need all the things I try to do. But also, I think we need to have a better approach also to innovation. In Europe, we have this precautionary principle, which means that we have, always to look at the risk that, for example, a new innovation, a new research bring to the population, the people, but we need also to have a kind of innovation principle. We have to be more open to innovation. Sometimes we see in Europe that when there is a new research, when there is a new innovation, the risk-adverse attitude also stop the innovation, and innovation is very important if we want to create a very strong industrial base. So I agree on the fact that we need more industry. I think the objective that the previous Commission had to have by 2020, 20% of the GDP output in Europe coming from industrial production is still good. I think that a country like Portugal, all the other countries, has to have their own project to go to there, but we need good decision at the national level and also at the European level. So I also agree with Antonio that also access to finance is very important. Having companies who have more equity is very important, and we see some problems on the credit sectors in Europe, and we have to fix this because this is very important. So I want to say that we know that there are a lot of things to do. We think that this is a very critical moment in Europe, but if we look at the history of Europe, normally when we have crisis. Crises are always very bad, but the only good thing of crisis that maybe crisis push us to do more, to be together, and to really make new steps to go towards a better Europe. So, as business and also as Business Europe, as I said, we want to speak up. We want to say very clearly what are our ideas. I try to say where we are working on, but we will come up in the next month with a very clear project on how to have a better Europe. I think, and I finish on this, we have to really go on, have a very competitive Europe, a Europe where we can have new jobs, new growth, a lot of investment, both public and both private. We need to have solid public deficit and debt, because without this we cannot have a solid growth in the next future. So we have really to work on different sides, on different things. I think we can do it. It's difficult, it's critical, but this is the time really to stay together, to have clear ideas, to also say different things. And maybe I think we also, all of us, we need a new narrative. We have to try really to understand better what people want in Europe, what the companies want in Europe, and be very pragmatic and go on with all our reforms and the idea of future, which is still with Europe, which must be strong. We have to stay together, and if we act like this, I think nevertheless, we have a lot of problems. We can have a better future for us, for ourselves, but most for our children. Thank you.
Thank you.